The screech of tires cut through the autumn afternoon like a blade through silk. Jacob Harris didn't think. His body moved on instinct, dropping the grocery bags that had been cutting circulation from his fingers. The golden retriever, all flailing limbs and panicked yelps, had bolted into the intersection of Madison and 7th, chasing what looked like a wind-swept napkin dancing across the asphalt. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work, so if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Time fractured into crystalline shards. Jacob saw the delivery truck, saw its driver's eyes go wide with horror, saw the dog frozen in that terrible moment of animal confusion. His sneakers pounded pavement, his shoulders screaming in protest, the old injury from his construction days flaring to life. He didn't care. The world narrowed to a tunnel. Him, the dog, and the truck's chrome grille gleaming in the October sunlight. His hands found fur. Warm, soft, trembling fur. Jacob's momentum carried them both forward, rolling across the crosswalk as the truck's horn blared a furious warning. They tumbled to safety on the opposite curb, Jacob's back slamming against a fire hydrant hard enough to knock the wind from his lungs. The retriever scrambled upright, shaking, then proceeded to lick Jacob's face with enthusiastic gratitude as if they'd been friends for years. "Bailey! Oh my God, Bailey!" The voice belonged to a woman sprinting toward them in heels that had no business being run in. She was all flowing auburn hair and designer clothes that probably cost more than Jacob's monthly rent, but her face was streaked with tears, her makeup ruined by genuine terror. She dropped to her knees beside them, not caring that the sidewalk was dirty, and gathered the dog into her arms while simultaneously reaching for Jacob. "Thank you," she gasped, her green eyes meeting his. Thank you. I don't know how to—" "It's okay," Jacob managed, still catching his breath. His ribs ached where they'd connected with the hydrant. "Is he all right? The dog, I mean." She corrected automatically, running her hands over Bailey's golden coat, checking for injuries. "She's a she. And she's fine. She's perfect, because of you." Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely complete the examination. "I turned my back for 1 second to answer my phone, and the leash slipped, and—" A small crowd had gathered, phones out, some recording, others asking if everyone was okay. Jacob recognized Mrs. Chen from the corner bodega and Marcus from the barber shop, both looking concerned. The delivery truck driver had pulled over, his face pale, asking if he needed to call an ambulance. "I'm fine," Jacob assured everyone, slowly pushing himself to his feet. His back protested, a deep ache settling into his spine, but nothing felt broken. Really, just a little rattled. The woman stood too, still holding Bailey's leash with white-knuckled intensity. She was taller than Jacob had initially thought, nearly matching his 5'11", and there was something about her, a poise beneath the panic, an elegance that seemed inherent rather than learned. "You're bleeding," she said, pointing to his elbow. Jacob glanced down. His jacket sleeve was torn, and sure enough, blood was seeping through his shirt. "Road rash. Had worse on the job sites." He tried to smile, to ease the tension that still hung in the air like humidity before a storm. I need to do something. Please." The woman fumbled in her purse, a leather thing that probably had its own insurance policy. "Can I at least pay for your medical bills? Your jacket? I'll replace it, or—" "No need," Jacob said gently. He bent down to retrieve his scattered groceries, a loaf of bread now flattened, a carton of milk that had somehow survived, a bag of apples rolling into the gutter. His daughter Emma's favorite cereal had burst open, leaving a trail of colorful rings across the sidewalk. "They're groceries," Jacob shrugged, salvaging what he could. "And she's a living creature, not exactly a tough choice." He straightened, holding his sad collection of damaged goods. "You should probably get her checked by a vet, though. Make sure the scare didn't—" "Daddy!"
Jacob's heart sank. Emma, his 7-year-old daughter, came running down the sidewalk, her backpack bouncing, her dark braids flying. She must have gotten out of the after-school program early, or maybe he'd lost track of time in the chaos. Either way, she was here, and she was staring at his torn jacket with wide, worried eyes that were too knowing for her age. "I'm okay, Pumpkin," he said quickly, kneeling to her level despite the protest from his ribs. "Just helped a dog. Everything's fine." Emma's small fingers traced the tear in his sleeve, her bottom lip trembling. "You're bleeding." "Barely. See? already stopped. He tried to keep his voice light, unconcerned. Emma had seen too much worry in her short life. Her mother's illness, the medical bills, the funeral 2 years ago that she still had nightmares about. He wouldn't add to that weight. "Hey, want to meet the dog I helped? Her name's Bailey." The woman, still nameless, seemed to understand the dynamic instantly. She guided Bailey forward, and the retriever, sensing a child, became a different creature entirely. Gentle, patient, tail wagging slowly as Emma reached out tentative fingers. "She's so soft," Emma whispered, her worry temporarily forgotten. "She likes you," the woman said, and her voice had changed, softened into something maternal and warm. "She's very picky about people, but she knows good ones when she meets them." She extended a hand to Emma. "I'm Sophia. Sophia Montgomery. And you are?" "Emma Harris. That's my dad, Jacob. He's the best dad in the whole world." Jacob felt his chest tighten with love so fierce it almost hurt worse than the hydrant impact. "Emma's a little biased," he told Sophia, ruffling his daughter's hair. Sophia Montgomery. The name tickled something in Jacob's memory, but he couldn't place it. He was terrible with celebrities and socialites, the kind of people who appeared in magazines Emma sometimes flipped through at the library. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Curiosity mixed with something else. Respect, maybe? Or confusion? "Mr. Harris." Then she stopped. "Jacob, I know you said no to compensation, but I own a restaurant. Well, several, actually, and I'd love to give you a gift certificate at least. For you and Emma. A nice dinner. My treat. It's the absolute least I can do." A restaurant. Several. The pieces started clicking into place in Jacob's mind. Sophia Montgomery. Montgomery Restaurant Group. He'd read an article about her once while waiting at the dentist office, some business magazine calling her the queen of culinary real estate or something equally dramatic. She owned that new place downtown, Elysian, where reservations were supposedly impossible to get, and appetizers cost more than Jacob spent on groceries in a week. "That's really generous," Jacob said carefully, "but we're good, honestly." "Daddy," Emma tugged his hand, her voice dropping to a stage whisper that everyone could hear, "can we please? I've never been to a fancy restaurant. Please." Sophia's eyes sparkled with barely suppressed amusement. "Emma seems interested, and Bailey would be devastated if we never saw you again. She's formed an attachment." As if on cue, the dog pressed against Jacob's leg, leaving golden fur on his jeans. Jacob looked down at his daughter's hopeful face, at the dog who nearly died, and the woman who clearly wasn't going to take no for an answer. He thought about his pride, about the careful boundaries he maintained between himself and people like Sophia Montgomery, people whose worlds operated on different frequencies, with different rules. Then he thought about Emma's words, "I've never been to a fancy restaurant." She hadn't, because he couldn't afford it, because every penny went to rent, bills, her school supplies, the occasional trip to the movies when he could swing it. A fancy dinner wasn't in their budget. It never would be, not on his salary from the hardware store. "Okay," he heard himself say, "one dinner. But that's it. We're even after that."
Sophia's smile transformed her entire face. "Deal." She pulled out her phone, sleek, expensive, probably the latest model, and handed it to him. "Put in your number. I'll text you the details." Jacob hesitated, then typed in his digits with hands still trembling slightly from adrenaline. His phone, a 3-year-old model with a cracked screen, buzzed in his pocket a moment later. "Wednesday night?" Sophia suggested. 7 o'clock? "I'll make sure the chef knows you're coming. Anything Emma doesn't eat?" "She's not picky," Jacob said, "but maybe something that doesn't involve—" "Mushrooms," Emma announced solemnly. "They're squishy." Sophia laughed, a genuine sound that made several passers-by turn their heads. "No mushrooms, I promise. Bailey and I will see you Wednesday." She paused, her expression turning serious. "Jacob, thank you. Really. You risked your life for my dog, and that's not something I'll forget." "Anyone would have done it," Jacob replied, uncomfortable with the weight of her gratitude. "No," Sophia said softly. They really wouldn't have. The apartment Jacob shared with Emma occupied the third floor of a walk-up in a neighborhood real estate agents optimistically called emerging. The radiator clanked through the night, the windows were single-pane and drafty, and the shower took 5 minutes to produce hot water, but it was theirs. He'd painted Emma's room lavender, her choice, and hung glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling in the exact pattern of Orion's belt. His own room was sparse. A bed, a dresser, a photograph of his late wife Sarah on the nightstand, forever frozen at 28, forever smiling. That Tuesday evening, Jacob stood at the bathroom mirror, dabbing antibiotic ointment on his road-rashed elbow, while Emma did her homework at the kitchen table. The bruise on his back had bloomed into an impressive purple-green constellation, but he'd kept his shirt on so Emma wouldn't see and worry. "Daddy, how do you spell restaurant?" "R-E-S-T-A-U-R-A-N-T." Jacob called back, wincing as he pressed a bandage over the scrape. "What's that for?" "I'm writing about tomorrow, from my journal. Mrs. Peterson said we could write about things we're excited for." Jacob felt that familiar tug in his chest. Emma's teacher encouraged the kids to maintain daily journals, a practice that cost exactly one 99-cent notebook from the dollar store, but gave her daughter an outlet for the feelings she sometimes struggled to express aloud. He dried his hands and joined her at the table, a rickety thing he'd stabilized with folded cardboard under one leg. Emma's handwriting sprawled across the lined paper in careful, deliberate letters. "Tomorrow, I'm going to a fancy restaurant because my dad saved a dog. My dad is a hero." "I'm not a hero, Pumpkin," Jacob said gently, sitting beside her. "Just someone who did what anyone should do." "But you did it," Emma insisted, her pencil poised above the paper. "You always do the right thing, even when it's hard." The weight of her faith in him was crushing and beautiful at once. He pulled her into a side hug, kissing the top of her head. She smelled like the strawberry shampoo they'd bought on sale last week and the faint chop dust from school. "You finish that up. I need to figure out what we're wearing tomorrow." Their combined wardrobe fit into one small closet. Jacob owned 2 pairs of jeans without holes, 3 button-down shirts from Goodwill, and 1 tie he'd worn to Sarah's funeral and never touched since. Emma had her church dress, navy blue with white flowers, and a handful of other outfits in various states of being outgrown. He stood in front of the closet like a general surveying inadequate troops. Elysian. He'd looked it up after Emma went to bed the night before. The website alone was intimidating. Artistic photos of dishes that looked like edible sculptures, a wine list longer than most novels, reviews using words like transcendent and revelatory. The dress code was listed as smart casual, which Jacob suspected meant something different in Sophia Montgomery's world than it did in his.
He pulled out his best shirt, light blue, slightly faded, but clean, and the jeans with the intact knees. It would have to do. For Emma, the church dress. She'd be thrilled anyway, regardless of what she wore. That was the gift of 7, the ability to find wonder in experiences rather than things. "Are we really going?" Emma appeared in the doorway, her journal abandoned, doubt creeping into her voice. "She's not going to forget, right?" "She's not going to forget," Jacob assured her, though he'd had the same worry. Rich people sometimes made promises they didn't keep, treating words like disposable things. But Sophia hadn't struck him as that type. There'd been something genuine in her gratitude, something real beneath the designer clothes and perfect makeup. "What if I use the wrong fork?" Emma's anxiety was showing now, her fingers twisting the hem of her t-shirt. "Or spill something, or—" "Then we'll figure it out together," Jacob said firmly. He knelt down, hands on her shoulders, looking her in the eye. "Emma, Listen to me. You are smart, kind, and wonderful exactly as you are. If anyone makes you feel like you don't belong somewhere, that's their problem, not yours. Understand? She nodded, but he could see the worry hadn't fully left her eyes. It was there too often lately. That shadow of insecurity, of feeling like they were always one step behind, $1 short, one nice outfit away from fitting in. He'd seen it grow since she started second grade, since she'd begun comparing her packed lunches to other kids' ordered meals, her hand-me-down backpack to their name-brand versions. "Tell you what," Jacob said, injecting brightness into his voice. "Tomorrow, after I pick you up from school, we'll stop by the library. Miss Janet has that book you wanted about horses, remember? And then we'll come home, get dressed up, and go have an adventure. Sound good?" "Will there be dessert?" Emma asked, practical as always. "I'd bet on it." "Like cake or pie or that fancy ice cream with the gold flakes you see on TV?" Jacob laughed. "I have no idea, but I promise, whatever it is, it'll be good." The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Jacob's shift at Riverside Hardware was routine, helping Mrs. Patterson choose paint colors for her bathroom, cutting keys for the Henderson family, restocking the seasonal aisle with snow shovels and ice melt as November loomed. His manager, Tom Brewer, was a decent guy in his 50s, who'd given Jacob the job 3 years ago when he was desperate, freshly widowed, and drowning in medical debt. "You doing okay, Tom?" "News traveled fast in our neighborhood. Dog ran into traffic, just happened to be there. And just happened to have the balls to run after it. Most people would have just watched and filmed it for their Instagram or whatever." He took a bite of his sandwich. "You're a good man, Jacob. Don't let anyone tell you different." The compliment sat uncomfortably on Jacob's shoulders. He wasn't good, he was just trying. Trying to be the father Emma deserved. Trying to keep their heads above water. Trying to honor Sarah's memory by not falling apart. Some days he succeeded. Other days he microwaved ramen for dinner because he'd thrown in some frozen peas. At 3:15, he clocked out and headed to Emma's school, an aging brick building that served the neighborhood's children with dedication and limited resources. She burst through the doors with her usual enthusiasm, backpack bouncing, already talking before he reached him. "Daddy, I told everyone about tonight, and Maria said her sister went to a fancy restaurant once and they had 12 forks, and she didn't know which one to use and got embarrassed, and I'm scared I won't know either." "Emma, breathe," Jacob said, taking her hand as they started toward the library. "It's going to be fine, I promise." The public library was Jacob's favorite place in the neighborhood, a Carnegie building from 1903 that had somehow survived budget cuts and gentrification. Miss Janet, the children's librarian, greeted them with her usual warmth and produced the horse book Emma had requested weeks ago. "Special occasion today?" Miss Janet asked, noticing Jacob's distraction as he checked out Emma's books. "Dinner at a fancy restaurant," Emma announced proudly, "because Dad saved a lady's dog and she's really rich and grateful." Miss Janet's eyebrows rose. "Well then, you two have a wonderful time. And Emma, remember, fancy restaurants are just places where people eat. You belong there as much as anyone." Those words echoed in Jacob's mind as they walked home, as he helped Emma into her navy dress and tied the ribbon at the back, as he buttoned his own shirt and ran a comb through hair that could have used a cut 2 weeks ago. They looked good, he decided. Maybe not magazine cover good, but respectable, real. The text from Sophia had come that morning. "Looking forward to tonight. Bailey's been asking about Emma all day. Car service picking you up at 6:30. No arguments. It's rush hour and parking is impossible downtown." A car service. Jacob had tried to argue via text, but Sophia had sent back only a smiling emoji and the address for the pickup. Now, at 6:28, he and Emma stood outside their building as a sleek black sedan pulled up. The driver, a professional-looking man in his 40s, greeted them by name. "Mr. Harris, Miss Emma? Miss Montgomery sends her regards. She's looking forward to seeing you." The car's interior smelled like leather and luxury. Emma's eyes went wide as she took in the bottled water, the heated seats, the smooth ride so different from Jacob's beat-up Honda Civic. She pressed her face to the window as they glided through the city streets, past their neighborhood and into downtown, where buildings scraped the sky and pedestrians wore clothes that cost more than Jacob's monthly salary. "Daddy," Emma whispered, "I think we're in a different world." Jacob squeezed her hand. "We're still us, pumpkin. That's all that matters." But as the car pulled up to Elysian, all glass and steel and elegant lighting, Jacob wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake in agreeing to this. Elysian occupied the corner of a renovated historic building, its facade a masterful blend of preserved architecture and modern design. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Jacob could see people dining in soft golden light, crystal glassware catching the glow of artfully placed candles. A doorman in a subtle uniform opened the door before Jacob could reach for it. "Welcome to Elysian. Miss Montgomery is expecting you." Inside, the restaurant was even more intimidating. The ceiling soared upward, exposed beams from the original 1920s structure, contrasting with contemporary light fixtures that looked like frozen waterfalls. The floors were reclaimed wood, polished to a mirror shine. Conversations hummed at a civilized volume, punctuated by the soft clink of expensive silverware on fine china. Jacob felt every eye in the room turn toward them, the man in the Goodwill shirt and the little girl clutching her father's hand like a lifeline. His protective instincts flared. If anyone made Emma feel less than... "Jacob! Emma!" Sophia appeared from somewhere beyond the host stand, and Jacob barely recognized her. Gone were the designer clothes and heels from Monday. Tonight she wore dark jeans, a simple cream sweater, and flats. Her hair was pulled back in a casual ponytail. She looked approachable, real, like she deliberately dressed down. For them, Jacob realized. She'd dressed down for them. "You made it," Sophia said, her smile genuine as she approached. She crouched slightly to Emma's level. "And you look absolutely beautiful, Emma. That dress is perfect." Emma's anxiety visibly melted. "Thank you. It's my church dress." "Well, it's lovely. Come on. I have the best table in the house waiting for us." Bailey wanted to come, but the health department has some ridiculous rule about dogs in restaurants, even when you own the restaurant.
She led them through the dining room, past tables of people who looked like they'd stepped from the pages of fashion magazines, past an open kitchen where chefs worked with the precision of surgeons, to a corner table by the windows. The city spread out below them, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk settled over downtown. "This is amazing," Emma breathed, her face pressed close to the glass. "I designed this space myself," Sophia said, settling into her chair with easy grace. "I wanted people to feel like they were floating above the city, like anything was possible." Her eyes met Jacob's across the table. "How's the elbow?" "Fine, healing up," Jacob said, still adjusting to the surreal nature of this situation. "This place is beautiful. You should be proud." "I am," Sophia said simply. "It took 3 years from concept to opening. A lot of people told me I was crazy, that the city didn't need another high-end restaurant, that I was overextending, but I believed in the vision." A server appeared with water and menus. "Marco, this is Jacob and Emma Harris. They're my special guests tonight. Please make sure Chef knows they're here." "Of course, Ms. Montgomery," Marco said with a professional smile. He handed over menus that were bound in leather and contained no prices. Jacob had expected this, but it still made him uncomfortable. The inability to make informed choices, to know what things cost, to be responsible for his own bill. Sophia seemed to read his discomfort. "Jacob, I meant what I said. This is my gift. Please order anything you'd like. Trust me, the chef won't let anything leave the kitchen unless it's perfect." Emma studied her menu with intense concentration, her finger tracing under words she was still learning to read. "What's confit?" "Confit," Sophia said. "It's a way of cooking something, usually duck, very slowly in fat until it's incredibly tender. Have you ever had duck?" Emma shook her head. "Would you like to try? Or would you prefer something more familiar? We have an excellent chicken dish, or pasta, or—" "I'll try the duck," Emma announced, with the bravery of children who haven't yet learned to fear new experiences. "If I don't like it, can I have the pasta?" "Absolutely," Sophia assured her. "That's the best way to experience food. Try everything. Discover what you love." Jacob ordered something called herb-crusted lamb because it sounded less intimidating than some of the other options, and Sophia requested the tasting menu, explaining that it would let them sample multiple dishes. As Marco departed with their orders, an uncomfortable silence settled over the table. "So," Sophia began, folding her hands in front of her, "tell me about yourselves. What do you do, Jacob?" "I work at Riverside Hardware," Jacob said, keeping his voice steady. No shame. Tom's words echoed. "You're a good man." "Been there about 3 years. It's steady work, good hours. Lets me be there for Emma." "And before that?" "Construction, carpentry, mostly. Built custom cabinets, did renovation work. I was good at it, but the hours were unpredictable and the pay was inconsistent. After Emma's mom died, I needed something more stable." He watched Sophia's face for signs of pity, that particular expression people got when they learned he was widowed. The soft eyes, the head tilt, the carefully modulated sympathy. But Sophia just nodded, her expression neutral and respectful. "That must have been incredibly difficult," she said quietly. "Being a single parent is one of the hardest jobs in the world. My mother raised me alone for several years. I remember how hard she worked, how tired she always was." She turned to Emma. "Your dad must love you very much." "He's the best dad ever," Emma said loyally. "He makes me breakfast every morning, even when he's tired. And he reads to me every night, and he came to every single one of my soccer games last season, even though we weren't very good." "We had spirit," Jacob defended their team with a smile. "Winning isn't everything." "That's very diplomatic," Sophia laughed. "I was terrible at soccer. Gave it up after one season to focus on piano, which I was also terrible at. Some of us are meant for other things." "What were you meant for?" Emma asked with the directness of childhood. Sophia considered the question seriously. "Building things, creating spaces where people can gather and share experiences. Food is just the medium. What I really love is bringing people together." Their first course arrived. Delicate oysters for Sophia, a soup of roasted butternut squash for Emma, and a salad for Jacob that looked like it had been arranged by an artist. Emma eyed her soup suspiciously until Sophia encouraged her to try it. The first spoonful changed everything. Emma's face lit up with wonder. "It's sweet, but also something else?" "Sage and brown butter. The chef adds just a touch of maple syrup. It's his grandmother's recipe. She was Italian, but she spent 20 years in Vermont." They ate and talked, and somewhere during the second course, Jacob felt himself begin to relax. Sophia asked Emma about school, about her favorite subjects, reading and art, about her friends. Maria and Zoe were her best, but Zoe was moving away and Emma was sad about it. She listened with genuine attention, not the glazed-eyed tolerance adults sometimes showed when children spoke. When the duck arrived, Emma approached it with scientific curiosity. She cut a small piece, examined it, smelled it, then tasted it. "It's really good. Like, really, really good?" "Right?" Sophia grinned. Duck is underrated. Most people never try it because they think it'll taste like chicken, but it's so much richer. Jacob's lamb was perfectly cooked, the meat tender and flavorful, served with vegetables he couldn't identify but tasted incredible. He tried to eat slowly, to savor each bite, but part of him was painfully aware of the cost each mouthful represented. This single meal could feed them for a week, maybe 2 if he stretched it. "You're thinking too much," Sophia said, catching his expression. "Stop calculating and just enjoy." "Hard habit to break. I'm used to budgets, making every dollar count." "I understand that more than you might think," Sophia said. She paused, then seemed to make a decision. "Can I tell you something? Most people assume I was born into wealth, that all this," she gestured around the restaurant, "was handed to me. But my mother was a waitress, single mom, as I mentioned. We lived in a studio apartment above a Chinese restaurant in Queens. I worked my way through culinary school washing dishes. My first restaurant was a food truck I bought with student loans and credit card debt." Jacob stared at her, reassessing everything he assumed. "I had no idea." "Most people don't. The business magazines love the rags to riches story, but they gloss over the parts where I ate ramen for 2 years straight, or worked 18-hour days, or nearly lost everything when my second restaurant failed. My voice was factual, not bitter. I know what it's like to count dollars, to choose between fixing your car and paying rent, to feel like you're one emergency away from disaster." "Then why all this?" Jacob asked, gesturing to the elegant surroundings. "If you've been there, why make a place that's so exclusive?" It was perhaps too honest, too challenging, but Sophia didn't seem offended. "Because I wanted to prove I could. Because I wanted to show that someone like me, from where I came from, could create something world-class. And because—" she paused, choosing her words carefully. "Because beauty and excellence shouldn't only belong to people who were born into privilege. Yes, this restaurant is expensive, but we also run a culinary training program for at-risk youth. We donate meals to shelters. We pay our staff living wages and provide health insurance. Success isn't just about making money. It's about what you do with it."
Emma had been listening to this exchange with wide eyes. "So, you help people?" "I try," Sophia said. "And people like your dad help me remember why it matters. Do you know what I thought when I saw him run into traffic after Bailey? I thought, that man doesn't hesitate. He sees something wrong and he fixes it, even if it costs him something. That's rare, Emma. That's special." Jacob felt heat rise in his face. "I just did what anyone—" "Stop," Sophia interrupted gently. "Stop minimizing it. You risked your life for a stranger's dog. You didn't ask for thanks or payment or recognition. You just acted because it was right. That's heroism, whether you want to call it that or not." The main courses arrived, interrupting the moment's intensity. Sophia had ordered a sampling of various dishes, and she insisted they all share, passing plates around, trying each other's food, discussing flavors and techniques. Emma tried escargot. "They're snails? Really snails? They taste like butter and garlic." And beef short ribs and some kind of fish that melted on the tongue. Marco appeared with fresh bread. With additional side dishes, the chef sent out compliments of the kitchen, with wine for Sophia and sparkling cider for Emma that came in a champagne flute and made her feel impossibly grown up. "This is the best night of my whole life," Emma declared, her face flushed with happiness. "I wish Mommy could be here. She would love this." The table went quiet. Jacob felt the familiar clench in his chest. Grief was like that, arriving unexpected, triggered by joy as often as sorrow. Emma's face fell as she realized what she'd said.
Tell me about her, Sophia said softly. Your mommy. What was she like? Jacob and Emma exchanged glances. They didn't talk about Sarah often with outsiders. It felt too private, too precious. But something about Sophia's tone, genuinely curious, not morbidly interested, felt safe. She was beautiful, Emma said. She had dark hair like mine, and she sang all the time, even when she was sick. Daddy said she sang to me before I was born. She did, Jacob confirmed, his voice rough. Drove me crazy sometimes, singing in the shower, singing while she cooked, making up songs about whatever she was doing. She had a terrible voice, completely tone-deaf, but she didn't care. She sounds wonderful, Sophia said. She was, Jacob agreed. She was a teacher, 3rd grade, and she loved it. Loved kids, loved learning, loved this crazy idea that education could change everything. When she got sick, he stopped, aware of Emma listening. Some details weren't for 7-year-old ears. When she got sick, the bills piled up fast. Insurance didn't cover everything. We had to make choices. He didn't elaborate, didn't mention the experimental treatment they couldn't afford, the second opinions they'd scraped together money for, the growing mountain of medical debt that still followed him like a shadow. Sarah had lived 18 months after her diagnosis, 18 months of hope and fear and temporary victories followed by inevitable defeats. I'm sorry, Sophia said, and it didn't sound like empty platitude. Losing someone you love there aren't adequate words. She made Daddy promise to be happy. Before she died, I heard her tell him that he had to promise to be happy and to help me be happy too. Jacob felt his throat close. He'd thought Emma was asleep during that conversation, during those final lucid hours when Sarah had gripped his hand and made him swear he wouldn't give up, wouldn't stop living, wouldn't let grief consume everything. Smart woman, Sophia said, and it looks like you're keeping that promise. Dessert arrived before Jacob could respond, a chocolate creation that defied description, plus fruit tarts, plus a sampler of house-made ice creams, including one that did indeed have gold flakes. Emma's eyes went saucer-wide. Is that real gold? She asked.
24 karat, Sophia confirmed. Completely edible, completely impractical, completely delightful. They ate dessert slowly, the conversation drifting to lighter topics. Emma's upcoming school play, Bailey's habit of stealing socks, the time Sophia accidentally set her first food truck on fire and had to start over. By the time they finished, it was nearly 9 o'clock, and Emma was fighting to keep her eyes open. This has been wonderful, Jacob said, meaning it more than he'd expected to. Thank you, Sophia, really. It was my pleasure, Sophia said, truly. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. Would it be okay if I got your email? I'd love to stay in touch. Maybe Emma would like to visit Bailey sometime? The dog has definitely formed an attachment. It was a transparent excuse, but Jacob found himself nodding. They exchanged contact information, and Marco appeared with their coats and discreet bags containing leftovers. Enough food for several meals, Jacob noted. The car service was waiting outside. As the driver opened the door, Sophia touched Jacob's arm. Thank you for giving me this evening. I know it was probably outside your comfort zone, but you made Bailey and me very happy. Thank you for making Emma feel special. That's worth more than any meal. In the car, Emma nestled against his side, already half asleep. Daddy? Is Sophia our friend now? Jacob considered the question. Friend seemed too simple a word for whatever connection had formed tonight, something tentative and complicated, bridging worlds that didn't usually intersect. I think so, Pumpkin. I think maybe she is. Good, Emma said, her eyes drifting closed. I like her, and I really like Bailey. The city lights blurred past the windows as they drove home, and Jacob held his daughter close, trying not to think about the fact that this magical evening in a world of crystal and gold leaf was a temporary departure from their real life. Tomorrow, he'd be back at the hardware store, Emma would be back at school, and Sophia Montgomery would return to her empire of restaurants and success. But for tonight, for these few hours, they'd been guests in a different kind of story. And despite his best efforts to maintain emotional distance, Jacob couldn't deny the small seed of something, hope maybe, or a possibility, that had taken root in his chest. The email came 3 days later, on a Saturday morning, while Jacob was doing laundry in the basement of their building. His phone buzzed with a notification from an unfamiliar address, sophia.montgomery@montgomerygroup.com. Hi, Jacob. I hope this isn't too forward, but I couldn't stop thinking about Wednesday night. Emma is absolutely delightful, and you're clearly doing an amazing job as a father. I was wondering if you two might be free next Saturday. I'm taking Bailey to a dog park in Riverside Park, and I thought Emma might enjoy playing with her. Very casual, just a morning at the park. No fancy restaurants, I promise. Let me know, Sophia. Jacob read it twice, standing in the fluorescent glare of the laundry room while someone's dryer thumped rhythmically nearby. His first instinct was to decline. This is how things got complicated, how lines got blurred, how people from different worlds collided and someone inevitably got hurt. Usually the someone with less money, less power, less ability to protect themselves. But then he thought of Emma's face when she talked about Bailey, the way she'd lit up around Sophia, the pure joy that had radiated from her all evening. How often did his daughter get to feel that kind of uncomplicated happiness? He typed back, "We'd love to. What time?" The response came within minutes. 10 a.m.? I'll bring coffee, and maybe some pastries from my bakery, the one that doesn't require formal wear. Saturday arrived with unseasonably warm November weather, the kind of false spring that made people forget winter was coming. Jacob and Emma met Sophia at the entrance to Riverside Park, where Bailey immediately recognized them and pulled so hard on her leash she nearly dragged Sophia off her feet. "She's been excited all morning," Sophia laughed, steadying herself. She wore jeans and a Columbia fleece, normal clothes that made her look younger, less intimidating. Her hair was in a messy bun, her face free of makeup except for a touch of lip gloss. "I brought bribes." She held up a bag from Montgomery's Bakehouse, one of her earlier ventures Jacob had learned from Googling her, and the smell of fresh pastries made his stomach growl despite the breakfast he'd already eaten. Emma had brought a tennis ball and immediately began throwing it for Bailey, who retrieved it with enthusiastic incompetence, often running past the ball in her excitement. The two of them took off across the open field, and Jacob found himself walking beside Sophia on the park's winding path. "This is more my speed," Sophia admitted, sipping coffee from a paper cup. "Don't get me wrong, I love Elysian. I'm proud of what we built there. But sometimes I miss simplicity. Days when the biggest decision was which food truck corner would get the most foot traffic." "You really did the food truck thing?" Jacob asked. "For 4 years. Sophie's Kitchen. Terrible name, but I was 23 and thought it sounded approachable." She smiled at the memory. "I served fusion comfort food, Korean tacos, Italian, Japanese ramen, things that made culinary purists cringe but that people actually wanted to eat. Made enough profit to open my first brick-and-mortar place in Brooklyn." "And now you have, what, 15 restaurants?" 17, actually, plus the bakery chain, a catering company, and the culinary school program I mentioned. Sophia said it without boasting, just stating facts. "It got big fast, maybe too fast. Sometimes I wonder if I've lost touch with why I started this whole thing." They walked in silence for a moment, watching Emma and Bailey play an increasingly chaotic game of fetch. Other dogs had joined in, and Emma was laughing so hard she could barely stand. "Why did you start it, really?" Sophia's expression turned thoughtful. "My mom worked 3 jobs when I was growing up. She was always exhausted, always stressed, always one step away from falling apart. But once a month, she'd save enough to take me to this little Italian restaurant in our neighborhood. Nothing fancy, red checkered tablecloths, Chianti bottles with candles stuck in them, the whole cliché. But for those couple hours, we weren't poor. We weren't struggling. We were just 2 people enjoying good food and each other's company." She paused, watching Emma through the ball again. "The owner, Mr. Castellano, he knew our situation.
He'd always give us extra bread, sneak me a free dessert, make my mom feel like a valued customer instead of someone to be pitied. That restaurant was our escape, our proof that beauty and joy existed even when everything else was hard. And you wanted to create that for other people, Jacob said, understanding. Exactly. Whether it's a food truck taco or $100 tasting menu, I want people to have that moment of escape, of feeling like they matter, like they deserve something beautiful. That's what you gave me Wednesday night. Jacob throned. What do you mean? You gave us that dinner. Yes, but you gave me something I'd forgotten. You reminded me what genuine people look like, what real priorities look like. Do you know how many people I have dinner with who spend the entire time networking or trying to impress me or angling for business opportunities? You just showed up. Were yourself. Let Emma be herself. It was the most honest meal I've had in years. Before Jacob could respond, Emma came running up, breathless and glowing. Daddy, Bailey can do tricks. Watch. Sophia demonstrated, sit, stay, shake, roll over, while Bailey performed with varying degrees of success, and Emma clapped enthusiastically. They spread out a blanket under a large oak tree and shared the pastries. Flaky croissants, chocolate twists, something called a Queen Amman that was crispy and caramelized, and possibly the best thing Jacob had ever tasted. You made these? He asked between bites. God, no. I have talented bakers for that. I just own the building and sign the checks. Sophia lay back on the blanket, face turned toward the sun. This is perfect. This, right here. No meetings, no phone calls, no crisis management. Just sunshine and good company. Emma had sprawled between them, Bailey's head in our lap. Can we do this every Saturday? She asked hopefully. Sophia and Jacob exchanged glances. We'll see, Jacob said carefully. Sophia is very busy. Not too busy for this, Sophia interrupted. If you're willing, I'd love to make this a regular thing. Emma clearly has a gift with animals, and Bailey needs the exercise. It would have been easy to say no, to maintain boundaries, keep their lives separate, protect Emma and himself from the inevitable disappointment when this friendship ran its course. But Emma was looking at him with such hope, and Sophia seemed genuinely invested. And maybe, Jacob thought, maybe he was allowed to take a chance on something good. Okay, he agreed. Regular Saturdays, as long as it works for everyone. Emma squealed and hugged Bailey so hard the dog yelped. Sophia grinned, looking more relaxed than Jacob had yet seen her. And just like that, their lives became entangled in ways Jacob couldn't have predicted. The Saturdays became routine. Sometimes they went to the park, sometimes to a dog-friendly cafe Sophia knew, once to a pet supply store, where Sophia let Emma pick out a toy for Bailey. Sophia texted during the week, pictures of Bailey, restaurant memes that made Jacob laugh, questions about Emma's school day. It felt natural, easy, like a friendship that had always existed. Then came the Saturday in late November, when everything shifted. They were at the park again, Bailey chasing leaves while Emma ran after her when Sophia's phone rang. Jacob watched her face change as she answered, professional mask sliding into place, shoulders tensing. I understand. Yes, I can be there in an hour. No, don't make any decisions without me. She hung up, stress evident in every line of her body. I'm sorry. There's a crisis at one of my restaurants. A kitchen fire, nobody hurt, but I need to... Go, Jacob said immediately. We understand. These things happen. Sophia looked torn. I hate cutting this short. Emma was having such a good time. We'll be fine, seriously. Jacob called Emma over, explained the situation. Emma was disappointed but understanding. She'd learned early that life didn't always go according to plan. I'll make it up to you both, Sophia promised, already texting her driver. Next week, I swear. And Emma, I'll send you pictures of Bailey later, okay? She left in a whirlwind of apologies and logistics, and Jacob and Emma stayed at the park for another hour before heading home. It wasn't until they were back at the apartment that Jacob realized Sophia had left her bag on their blanket. Expensive leather, probably containing important things. He texted her, "You left your bag at the park. I have it." The response was almost instantaneous. Oh, thank God. I have my phone, but my wallet and keys are in there. I'm at the restaurant dealing with insurance adjusters. Could you possibly bring it to me? I know it's an imposition. Jacob looked at Emma, who was already nodding enthusiastically. Address? Sophia sent the address. A restaurant in the financial district called Meridian. Jacob had heard of it, seen the reviews. It was supposed to be one of her most successful ventures, the place where hedge fund managers took clients and corporate cards got a workout. They took the subway downtown, Emma chattering about Bailey and school and her upcoming winter concert. The restaurant's exterior was all modern glass and subtle signage. Through the windows, Jacob could see the damage. Burn marks on one wall, the acrid smell of smoke, insurance people with clipboards examining everything. A young woman met them at the door. "Mr. Harris? I'm Chelsea, Sophia's assistant. She's in the back, but she said to bring you through."
They followed Chelsea through the dining room. Even damaged, the space was impressive, and into a kitchen that was a disaster zone. Blackened equipment, water everywhere from the sprinklers, the head chef yelling at someone about protocol. And in the middle of it all stood Sophia, looking exhausted and overwhelmed and nothing like the confident woman from the park. "Jacob," she said, relief flooding her face. "Thank you. I'm so sorry to drag you down here." "It's fine. We wanted to help." He handed over the bag. Sophia clutched it like a lifeline. Today has been... Her voice cracked slightly. "The fire was bad enough, but then the insurance adjuster is saying we might not be covered because of some maintenance issue I didn't even know about, and the health department wants to do a full inspection of all my kitchens and..." She stopped, seeming to remember Emma was there. I'm sorry, this isn't your problem." "Is there anything we can do?" Jacob asked. He felt useless, out of his depth in this world of commercial kitchens and insurance policies and corporate crisis management. "You've done enough by bringing the bag. Really." Sophia managed a weak smile for Emma. "I'm sorry our Saturday got ruined, sweetheart." "It's okay," Emma said with 7-year-old wisdom. "Sometimes things go wrong and you have to fix them. That's what Daddy always says." Something in Sophia's expression softened. "Your daddy is very smart." The head chef called Sophia over, something about the industrial stove that needed her immediate attention. She excused herself, and Jacob was about to take Emma home when he noticed the delivery entrance. Boxes piled haphazardly, some water damaged, clearly disorganized in the chaos. "Chelsea," he said to the assistant, "do you need help sorting through supplies, figuring out what's salvageable?" Chelsea looked stressed. "Honestly, yes, but we couldn't ask." "You're not asking. I'm offering. Emma, you okay waiting while I help sort some boxes?" Emma nodded, pulling out the library book she'd brought. Chelsea found her a dry stool away from the worst of the damage, and Jacob rolled up his sleeves. 3 hours later, the delivery area was organized. Salvageable supplies separated from damaged goods, a preliminary inventory completed. Jacob's back ached. He'd aggravated the bruise from the hydrant incident, but the small sense of accomplishment felt good. This he could do. This he understood. Sophia found him as he was finishing up. She looked stunned. "Jacob, you didn't have to. I know, but you helped make Emma's night special at Elysian. This is me returning the favor. This is hours of work. This is..." She stopped, her voice caught. "Why would you do this?" "Because you're our friend, and friends help each other." Sophia stared at him, and Jacob saw something shift in her eyes. Something deeper than gratitude, more complicated than friendship. It made his pulse quicken in a way that felt both exciting and dangerous. "Let me buy you dinner," Sophia said. "Both of you. Not here, obviously, but there's a pizza place around the corner that..." "We'd love that," Jacob interrupted before he could second-guess himself. They went to Lou's Pizza, a neighborhood institution where the slices were huge and the atmosphere was chaotic, and Emma declared it almost as good as the fancy restaurant.
Sophia was different here. Less guarded, more real. She told stories about restaurant disasters, about the time she'd accidentally ordered 10,000 pounds of potatoes instead of 1,000, about the chef who quit mid-service by walking out with a full tray of entrees. "This business is insane," she admitted, cheese stretching from her second slice. Some days I wonder why I do it." "Because you love it," Jacob said. "Anyone can see that." "Maybe," Sophia agreed. "Or maybe I'm just stubborn. My mom used to say I'd argue with a wall if I thought it was wrong." She glanced at Emma, who was focused on her pizza. "Your mom was stubborn too, wasn't she?" Jacob smiled, remembering. "The most stubborn person I ever met. She decided I was going to be her husband about 3 weeks after we met, and that was that. I didn't stand a chance." "Smart woman," Sophia said softly, recognizing a good man when she saw one. Their eyes met across the table, and Jacob felt that pull again, that magnetic attraction he'd been trying to ignore. This was dangerous territory. Sophia Montgomery existed in a different stratosphere, and even if she seemed genuine, even if this friendship felt real, the gap between their worlds was unbridgeable. Wasn't it? The weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas passed in a blur of Saturday park visits, midweek texts, and an increasingly obvious connection that both Jacob and Sophia seemed hesitant to acknowledge. Emma had started calling Sophia Aunt Sophie, a development that made Jacob's chest tight with both warmth and worry. He knew what happened when people got too comfortable, too attached. He'd learned the hard way that happiness was provisional, that stability was temporary, that loving someone meant accepting the inevitability of loss. But Emma hadn't learned those lessons yet, and watching her bloom under Sophia's attention was worth the risk of eventual heartbreak. Probably. Maybe. The Saturday before Christmas, Sophia invited them to her apartment for the first time. "I want to give Emma her present in person," she'd explained over text, "and Bailey's been begging to host a playdate." Sophia's apartment occupied the top 2 floors of a converted warehouse in Tribeca, the kind of space featured in architectural magazines, with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows and art that was probably worth more than Jacob's annual salary. But it was also surprisingly cozy, filled with plants and comfortable furniture and photographs that told stories of Sophia's life, her mother, various restaurant openings, and Bailey as a puppy. Bailey greeted them with her usual enthusiasm, and Emma immediately began playing with her. Sophia handed Jacob a coffee. She'd learned he took it black with 1 sugar, and they sat on her couch watching Emma and the dog play tug-of-war with a rope toy. "I have something for you both," Sophia said, producing 2 wrapped packages. Emma first. Emma opened hers with reverent care, the way children who rarely receive expensive gifts often do. Inside was a leather-bound journal with her name embossed on the cover and a set of professional colored pencils. "For your writing and drawing. Your teacher told me you're very talented. I hope you don't mind. I called the school to ask what you might like." Emma's eyes filled with tears. This is too much." "It's exactly enough. Promise me you'll use it." Emma nodded, clutching the journal like treasure. "Jacob," she handed him a smaller box. "This one's for you." Inside was a leather tool belt, clearly custom-made, with Jacob's initials stamped on it. The leather was supple and high quality, the stitching immaculate. It was beautiful and practical, and probably cost several $100s. "Sophia," Jacob began. "Before you object," she interrupted, "let me explain. You mentioned you used to do carpentry, that you were good at it, and I've been thinking about expanding my restaurant group. Not another restaurant, but maybe a design and build company. Someone who understands craftsmanship, who could oversee custom build-outs for new locations. I'm wondering if you might be interested." Jacob stared at her. "You're offering me a job?" "Not exactly. I'm offering you a partnership. You'd have equity, creative control, a team to manage. It would be hard work, long hours initially, but—" "I can't accept that," Jacob said immediately. Sophia's face fell. "Why not?" "Because—" Jacob struggled to articulate the tangle of pride and fear and self-preservation. "Because I don't want to be your charity case. Because what happens when this," he gestured between them, "whatever this friendship is, when it ends? Then I've got a job I only have because you felt sorry for me." "Felt sorry for you?" Sophia's voice rose slightly. "Jacob, I've watched you organize my entire inventory system in 3 hours. I'm seeing you fix a wobbly table at Lou's Pizza with a matchbook and somehow make it perfectly level. You rebuilt Emma's bookshelf from scratch because the store-bought one was structurally unsound. You're talented. This isn't charity, it's recognizing value." "It feels like charity," Jacob insisted. Emma, sensing tension, had stopped playing with Bailey and was watching them with worried eyes. Sophia noticed and softened her tone. What if we table this discussion? Let me give you the contract to look over, no pressure. Talk to a lawyer if you want. And in the meantime," she pulled out another package, this one clearly for Bailey. "Can we at least give Bailey her Christmas present?" The tension broke slightly. Emma helped unwrap Bailey's gift, a ridiculous sweater with reindeer on it, and they spent the next hour laughing as Bailey tried to escape the outfit while simultaneously posing for photos. But the job offer hung in the air between Jacob and Sophia, unresolved. Later, after Emma fell asleep on Sophia's guest room couch and Bailey curled up beside her, Jacob and Sophia sat on her balcony, despite the December chill. The city sprawled below them, millions of lights marking millions of lives. "I'm sorry if I overstepped," Sophia said quietly. "That wasn't my intention." "I know, and I appreciate the thought. Really, it's just complicated." "Because of us? Because of whatever this is between us?" Jacob's heart hammered. "Is there a us?" Sophia turned to face him, and in the dim light of the city, she looked vulnerable in a way he'd never seen. "I don't know. I think maybe? I know I look forward to Saturdays more than anything else in my week. I know I think about you constantly, about Emma, about whether you've eaten dinner, whether your back is still bothering you, whether you're happy. God, I sound like a teenager. I think about you, too. More than I should, more than's probably smart. Why isn't it smart? Because you're Sophia Montgomery. You own 17 restaurants. You're on Forbes lists. You have an apartment with original artwork and a view of the Statue of Liberty. And I'm a single dad working at a hardware store." Sophia finished. "Jacob, do you think any of that matters to me?" "It should. It should matter. Because what happens when you get bored? When the novelty of slumming it with the working class wears off?"
Sophia flinched like he'd struck her. "Is that really what you think of me?" "I think you're wonderful," Jacob said honestly. "I think you're generous and kind, and you've made my daughter happier than she's been since her mother died. But I also think you live in a different world, and I'm terrified of what happens when those worlds stop overlapping." Silence settled between them, broken only by the city sounds below. Finally, Sophia spoke. "My mother died 6 months ago," she said quietly. "Heart attack. Sudden. I was in Tokyo opening a new restaurant when it happened. I didn't get to say goodbye." Her voice cracked. "I've been so angry at myself for not being there, for being so focused on building this empire that I forgot why I was building it. For her. It was always for her. To prove that her sacrifices mattered, that I'd made something of the chances she gave me." Jacob reached for her hand without thinking. "I'm so sorry." After she died, everything felt hollow. The restaurants, the accolades, the money, none of it meant anything. I kept going through the motions, but inside, I was empty. Sophia squeezed his hand. "And then some ridiculously brave man ran into traffic to save my dog, and he wouldn't even let me pay him back. He just did it because it was right. And I thought maybe there was still good people in the world. Maybe there was still something real." "Sophia, I'm not bored with you, Jacob. I'm not slumming it. You and Emma, you've given me something I didn't even know I was missing. You've given me a reason to remember why any of this matters." Tears streaked down her face.
So please don't reduce what we have to some kind of class divide. I'm not asking you to be anything other than exactly who you are." Jacob pulled her into his arms. This powerful woman who'd conquered the restaurant world but couldn't conquer grief, who'd built an empire but felt hollow inside it. She fit against him perfectly, her tears soaking his shirt, her hands gripping his back like he might disappear. "I'm scared," he whispered into her hair. "I'm so scared of getting this wrong, of hurting Emma, of losing you." "I'm scared too," Sophia admitted. "I haven't felt this way since—" She pulled back to look at him. "I haven't felt this way ever. Not like this. Not this real." Jacob cupped her face in his hands, calloused fingers against her soft skin, and kissed her. It was tentative at first, a question more than a statement, but Sophia answered by pulling him closer, by kissing him back with an intensity that made his heart race. She tasted like the wine they'd had with dinner, like hope and possibility, and all the things Jacob had convinced himself he didn't deserve. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sophia laughed shakily. "Well, that's one way to clarify things. Yeah, that's definitely clear." They stayed on the balcony until the cold drove them inside, talking about everything and nothing, about Sarah and Sophia's mother, about Emma's future and Bailey's antics, about the possibility of building something together that honored both their worlds instead of choosing between them. When Jacob finally woke Emma to go home, Sophia walked them to the door. "The job offer stands, not as payment, not as charity, as a genuine business opportunity with someone I trust. Think about it." Jacob nodded. "I'll think about it." "And the other thing," Sophia asked quietly. "Us?" "I'll think about that too," Jacob said. But he was smiling. "Probably constantly, obsessively, until I drive myself crazy." "Good," Sophia said, and kissed him again. Softer this time. "Merry Christmas, Jacob Harris." "Merry Christmas, Sophia Montgomery." In the taxi home, Emma nestled against his side, half asleep. "Daddy?" she murmured. "Do you love Sophia?" Jacob considered lying, protecting them both from the vulnerability of that truth. But Emma deserved honesty. "I think I'm starting to," he admitted. "Is that okay with you?"
Emma smiled, her eyes already closed. Yeah, she'd be a good mom, and Bailey would be a good sister. Jacob's heart clenched, with fear, with joy, with the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, they were allowed to be happy again. 3 months later, Jacob stood in the empty warehouse space in Brooklyn, architectural plans spread across a makeshift table, and tried to imagine it transformed. Sophia wanted to convert it into her next restaurant concept, something more casual, more neighborhood-focused, and she'd asked him to design and oversee the build-out. He'd accepted the job offer on New Year's Eve. After weeks of consultation with a lawyer Sophia had paid for, she'd insisted, after reviewing contracts that were more generous than he'd dared hope, after Emma had literally begged him to please say yes before Sophia thinks we don't like her anymore. Now he ran a small team of craftspeople, managed budgets, and created spaces that blended Sophia's vision with structural integrity. It was challenging, sometimes overwhelming, but Jacob woke up every morning excited about work for the first time in years. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Dinner at my place tonight? I'm attempting to cook. It might be a disaster. Bring Emma and low expectations." Jacob smiled and typed back. "Your cooking can't be worse than mine. We'll be there." Emma was thriving. She'd started a creative writing club at school, filled her journals with stories and drawings, and spent every Saturday with Bailey, while Jacob and Sophia worked on the restaurant project together. The nightmares about her mother had lessened. The anxiety about money had eased. She was still the same thoughtful, kind child, But now joy came easier, laughter more frequent. 6 months later, the new restaurant, Harvest, opened to critical acclaim. The Brooklyn neighborhood embraced it immediately, a place that felt accessible but special, where families could afford dinner but also celebrate occasions. Jacob had built custom tables from reclaimed wood, designed a play area where kids could safely entertain themselves while parents enjoyed meals, created spaces that felt warm and welcoming. At the opening night, Sophia pulled him aside. "We make a good team." "We really do," Jacob agreed. They'd been dating officially for 4 months now, though they'd kept it relatively private. Emma knew, of course, and was thrilled. Bailey knew and approved, as evidenced by the way she'd annexed herself to their family, splitting time between Sophia's apartment and the new house Jacob had been able to afford. A modest place, with a yard, in a neighborhood with good schools. "I love you," Sophia said. There, in the middle of her newest restaurant, with guests mingling and music playing. "I know it's complicated, and we're still figuring things out, but I needed you to know. I love you." Jacob kissed her, not caring who saw. "I love you too. Have for a while now." 1 year later.
The wedding was small, family and close friends at a garden venue upstate. Emma served as junior bridesmaid, wearing lavender and carrying Bailey's basket. The dog participated as ring bearer, though she needed heavy coaching. Sophia's restaurant family attended, mingling with Jacob's hardware store colleagues and the neighborhood friends they'd accumulated. Sophia's vows made Jacob cry. "You taught me that wealth isn't measured in dollars or accolades, but in moments like Saturday mornings at the park, in pizza dinners with sauce on our faces, and the sound of Emma's laughter. You gave me a family when I'd forgotten I needed one. You gave me purpose beyond profit. You gave me yourself, without conditions, without expectations. I promise to honor that gift every day for the rest of our lives." Jacob's vows were simpler. "I was so afraid of hoping for this, afraid of believing I deserved another chance at love. But you were patient with my fear. You saw past my pride. You loved not just me, but my daughter, my whole chaotic life. You didn't try to fix us or change us. You just made space for us in your world. And now my world is so much bigger, so much brighter because you're in it. I love you, Sophia. I'm going to love you until there's no love left, and then I'll find more." They honeymooned in Italy, Sophia's first vacation in 5 years, and returned home to the life they were building together. 4 years after that first afternoon, Jacob Harris Montgomery, they'd hyphenated, both of them changing their names, sat at the kitchen table of their new house, bigger than the last, with room for Emma's art studio and Sophia's test kitchen, and an actual yard where Bailey, now senior and sedate, supervised from a sunny patch of grass. Emma, now 11, was writing in her journal, not the original leather-bound one from Sophia, though she still treasured it, but a new one for this phase of her life. She looked up, catching her father's eye. "What are you thinking about?" "Just how much can change," I said honestly. "How one split-second decision can redirect your entire life." "You mean saving Bailey?" "Yeah. If I'd hesitated, if I'd walked past, if I'd been scared, none of this happens. You don't get Sophia as a mom. I don't get a career I love. We don't get Bailey." Emma considered this with the gravity of someone who'd learned early that life was both fragile and precious. "But you didn't hesitate, because that's who you are. You see something wrong, you fix it, even when it's scary." Sophia entered from her office, where she'd been working on plans for the culinary school scholarship program in her mother's name. She kissed Jacob's head, squeezed Emma's shoulder, and helped herself to coffee. "What are we talking about?" "How Dad's heroics changed our lives," Emma said dramatically. "Heroics, listen to you. He's never going to admit he's a hero." "Because I'm not," Jacob protested. "I just did what anyone should do." Both Sophia and Emma chorused, having heard this line countless times. The doorbell rang. Bailey barked once, more from obligation than actual alarm. It was Marcus, from the barber shop, dropping off plans for a community center renovation Jacob had volunteered to help design, pro bono work he'd started doing once finances stabilized, a way to give back to the neighborhood that had supported him during the hardest years. After Marcus left, Jacob stood at the window watching the street.
This life, this beautiful, improbable life, still sometimes felt like it belonged to someone else. The successful business, the loving wife, the daughter who no longer woke up worried about money, the house with space to breathe.
Sophia came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Penny for your thoughts?" "Just grateful," Jacob said. "Terrified I'll wake up, and this will all be a dream." "It's not a dream," Sophia assured him. "It's just what happens when two people are brave enough to be honest about who they are, what they need, what they can offer." She was right, Jacob knew. Their relationship worked because neither of them had pretended to be anything other than themselves. Scared, scarred, hopeful, honest. Sophia had never asked him to be wealthier or more sophisticated, and he'd never asked her to be less ambitious or successful. They'd just fit, like puzzle pieces cut from different pictures that somehow created something new. An incredible blend of each of them in a way that neither of them could have foreseen.